Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here with head coach Gareth Taylor to preview the WSL match against Tottenham Hotspur this Sunday. We'll start with questions in the room. Ben, if you want to go.
Thank you. Gareth, welcome back.
Thank you.
The international break went well for members, lots of members of the group. How has everyone reported back, and what's the feeling in the group?
Pretty good. The ones who have reported back, we're still awaiting, obviously, the Japanese players. Managed to see Mary this morning, which was good. Obviously, their schedule was a lot longer in the sense of they only played less than 48 hours ago and travelled since. So it's high demands for them. Obviously, only gives us 1 day lead in tomorrow for the game on Sunday, and obviously having to travel as well. So things are pretty tight in that sense of checking in with players to make sure everyone's okay. But our comms have been pretty good so far. Everyone apart from Rebecca Knaak has checked in really well. Unfortunately, Rebecca came off in the second game for Germany. Obviously had the real high of making her international debut, which was, for me, really well deserved, been top for us. Unfortunately, she sustained a hamstring injury, which is going to keep her out for certainly a few weeks.
Can I take it from that you don't think the Japanese players will be back and available this weekend, or do you still hope they might be involved in the squad?
Well, as I've mentioned to you before, we're not blessed with a huge amount of options due to obviously not having a huge squad and also sustaining some injuries, which we've spoken about previously. But I think we'll just have conversation with the players. I think where we are probably in terms of in a better place for options is probably at the front end of the pitch. So we'll check in with Alba, with Yui, and obviously with Oyama, who I'm sure will be fine. But yeah, I think those guys are used to kind of dealing with that type of schedule, quick turnaround. But yeah, going into 3 games in 7 days again, straight after an intense international break is not ideal. But we'll manage and we'll work it out and make sure we try and keep the players as fresh and available as much as possible and physically good for this intense period that we're going to have in this next month.
It is an intense period. Pep Guardiola sat there about an hour ago and said that for them, every game's a cup final now, given their situation in the league and obviously trying to win a trophy. I guess it's the same for you in that you face a similar prospect.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think like when you look at this month, 4 competitions, work to do in the WSL for us to make Champions League, which is a priority, of course. You've got the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. You have the Champions League, of course, as well, and obviously a League Cup final wedged in amongst it. So kind of like 4 priorities. And when you look at our April fixtures at the moment, it looks pretty calm, but we want it to be really full. And it gets really full by being successful in this period. And we know that's going to be really tough. We know we have the 4 games against Chelsea. We know we have 3 WSL games away out of 4. The other game played at the Etihad Stadium. So there's like a lot going on in this month. And I think for us, the conversations with the players will certainly be, as always, attack the next game. Don't try and give too much thought to what's further down the road. It's exciting and really a good motivation for the players to have a cup final to look forward to. And we worked really hard to get to that final, obviously beating 2 tough opponents in the quarterfinals and the semi-finals. So I think that's great, and it's difficult not to have one eye on that, or difficult not to have one eye on Aston Villa this weekend. Sorry, not this weekend, next weekend. But of course, we have priorities with 2 tough fixtures against Spurs and West Ham, both away, and back after an international break. So it's everything's kind of thrown into the mix a little bit in terms of making it a challenge. But this is why we love the game, and it always throws up opportunities potentially for other players.
Can I just finish by asking you about the wider talk around the WSL and the restructure? I know we spoke about it a little bit about a month ago, didn't we, in terms of some of the plans. What do you make of some of the plans, specifically, I guess, the one that seems most contentious, the idea that perhaps there's a plan mooted to get rid of relegation?
Yeah, I only kind of had a quick, brief overview of it this morning. I think when we were discussing it, it was probably around other things I spoke to you about. And I've always had this thing of potentially making the league bigger, more teams, 14, 16 teams, I think would change a lot, would create more competition within it. On first visual of looking at that piece this morning around no relegation. I can completely understand the reasons why, because it allows stability a little bit for those clubs to invest and create more competition. But I think that's always kind of tough when you're playing in the league below, knowing that realistically you're never going to have an opportunity to come up, and because it's ring fenced. So I don't know, I need to have a look at it a little bit more. It's good that the relevant people are discussing this and having conversations around how can we improve the product and make it better and make it more competitive, both ends.
Yeah, I guess if you'd have told anyone in that Man City dressing room in '99 that they couldn't get promoted and back to where the club is now, I get, that's where English football.
What were we doing at Wembley trying to?
Exactly, but that's what English football makes it great, isn't it? That pyramid structure.
Yeah, it does. Like I say, I can see all of the reasons why they were suggesting it and trying to create stability within teams. If you look at Reading as an example, probably in my time certainly in the first couple of seasons, were in the WSL, fallen away, now fallen out of the Championship. There's positive and negative to both things. I think sometimes I've always been about keeping it simple. I think promotion and relegation are always going to be what supporters and teams play for and crave, and I think that really is going to be difficult to move away from that.
Thanks.
Gareth, you said just before the international break it was a good period for yourself, the staff and the players who weren't going on international breaks. So how was that pause for yourself and the staff and those who were here at the CFA?
Nice for the staff to have a break, but like I said, not many of the players did. Of course, we worked with a small group here who were not on international duty. I think it was good to spend some time working with Bunny, with Oyama, who never went on duty, with Gracie Pryor as well, and then also the reintroduction of Laura Coombs back into training has been good, and she's close now to joining back up fully with the squad. Just needs a little bit more training, so it'll be touch and go whether it's Sunday. But I think if it's not Sunday, it'd definitely be Wednesday that we'll be able to see Laura. And of course, Lauren Hemp, I think is pushing on, looking really good in what we're seeing of her. Is starting to be reintroduced to some moments of training, which has been great to see. And yeah, again, these games coming up might be a little bit too soon, but she's getting there. She's looking good, and Alex is a little bit further back in that sense with her, but hopefully not too far away also.
Is there a chance we might see Lauren and Alex in March? You say a lot of games, thin squad. Do you think we could see them maybe towards the back end of the month?
Yeah, you would hope so. Yeah, you would hope so. Of course, we want to make sure that there's plenty of games in there for them to be kind of brought back gradually. But yeah, certainly I think Lauren is like I say a little bit closer than Alex. But Alex is in good spirits. She's feeling a lot happier in the way she is physically. So yeah, I would like to say in March we would like to see that. You know that things can change pretty quickly, but hopefully that's the case. You touched on Oyama in the first question. What sort of work has she been doing? How close do you think she is to sort of being adapted to the WSL? Obviously, it'll take games to do that as well. Yeah, we'll do. It'll take moments. Like in the last game against Liverpool, we managed to get her some exposure to that, of course. And I think that she's a good player. She's a young player. She's a player for the future. She's competing in that number 6 position with one of the best in Yui, and I think that's great for her. A really good challenge for her. And of course, Yui's quite a durable player in a sense is that you never really worry about her playing every 3 or 4 days, very physically fit, recovers really, really well. But of course, being able to have Oyama there as well is going to be a good option for us. And just the challenge of Spurs, how do you view that one? Yeah, really, I like what Robert does in terms of how consistent he is in the way he plays. I think, we played him a lot last season. We were successful, obviously, at the Etihad against him this season. I think that in terms of, unless he goes and surprises us all, I'm pretty certain about how they're going to play with and without the ball, the threats that they pose. But yeah, of course, I think it's a different game at Leyton Orient. We played there quite a lot last season. And I think that this stage of the season, the pitches start to become probably at their worst in terms of how much usage that they've got and the weather that we've had. So yeah, it makes it interesting. But I think for us, it's recognising their threats, understanding how they're going to shape up with the ball and without the ball. And yeah, they're obviously playing on their patch, and we want to make sure we try and continue with our pretty good record over the last few seasons against them.
And just finally from me, you touched on about the month and big games in all the competitions. How do you keep the focus on the next game when there's a lot of noise, obviously Champions League, Cup final and games at the Etihad? How do you keep the focus on one game at a time?
Just that, really. I think if it's important, if the staff are talking about something further down the future, then we're in the wrong. So I think it's very much driven by ourselves, and I think that, you know, the easy thing to do is take your eye off the next game and try and potentially look further down the line. I think there's no doubt as staff, and obviously preparing for this month and having to be creative with our squad, especially because of the conditions that we have in front of us, are the most important things. Is probably the only time that I would take my eye off the next game and probably look a little bit further down the line and work backwards from there. And I think it's really important to have that plan laid out in terms of what you think the games are going to look like, which players are going to be important for specific games, knowing that we have different types of midfielders, from Miedema to Rord to Laura Coombs, Jess Park and Blinkill Brown. They give you different things, and how we can use those players, especially in terms of how we're going to hurt our opponents. So I think for the players, it's just really making sure that they concentrate on the next one. And I think between when you're playing every 3 or 4 days, which we will be in this month, it's really hard to look too far ahead, I think, anyway. You're just focusing on the game, recovering from the game, and before you know it, you're into the next one. So I think it's good. I've always said that I like this sequence of when you don't play for 2 weeks is the worst thing. I think being able to play every 3 or 4 days is great. Of course, we would like all of our players fit and available, and that presents another challenge for us, but life's about challenges, and we take it and give it our very best.
Thank you, Gareth. Cheers.
Thanks, Sam. We'll
Thank
go
you.
to Zoom now. Tom?
Good afternoon, Gareth. Thank you for your time. Please, since the last time you had a fixture, Ellie Roebuck gave a long interview to the BBC, and I just wanted to kind of give you a fair chance to give us your version of the story, because Ellie said that her relationship with you as manager had been fractured, and she said there wasn't clear communication, and she also said that she didn't feel the respect was reciprocated, and I just wanted to give you a chance to respond to that. How do you respond to her words?
Yeah, I think always when players are kind of outside of the team and for whatever reason, and I think obviously it's been well documented, like the issues that Ellie had. We also had the emergence of Chiara. I've always stressed that I have big decisions to make, and my kind of like real direction is with the team. And sometimes players are going to feel that on the outside a little bit, certainly when they're not playing. But I think all in all, like it kind of is what it is. I don't think there was anything too much in it. We have good history, me and Ellie. I think when you certainly look at what she gave to the club, particularly that kind of final part of Nick's tenure, to obviously the beginning of mine, there was some real good success in there. But sometimes, like, the game moves on, competition levels improve, and like I say, that coincided with, you know, the real awful kind of trauma that Ellie had with her, which we thought was concussion initially, which dragged on a little bit longer. I think was really difficult, especially for Ellie. So I think, you know, no one really wants to see her go through that particular period. And of course, while that's going on and you're trying to support a player, the team has to continue, and we have to make decisions based on that. So I think it was fine. We have good history. I think she did really well for the club, and we wish her really well at Barcelona.
Okay, does it sadden you, Gareth, that she said those things? You know, given the success you just mentioned there, is there anything that, you know, we reflect back on the time at all? Is there anything you would have done differently at all?
No, I mean, of course, we always try to review and reflect, but I don't think there was anything too much in it. I did read the article because it was mentioned to me, and I don't think there was anything too much in it. Of course, players will always feel, like I said to you, sometimes on the sharp end of things when all of a sudden they're not playing regularly like they want to. But, you know, I always try and make sure that my communication is really clear on that, on what I expect from the goalkeepers and what I need them to do. and trying to be as honest as I possibly can be when I make a decision on this is the direction that I'm moving in. So I think it's fine. It's fine.
Thanks, Gareth. And please, can I just ask, your last match, you had a very successful the win against Liverpool, and obviously since then, Matt Beard is no longer in his job. I guess I just wanted to get your reaction to that, and I guess you must have sympathy for Matt with the work that he did at Liverpool.
Yeah, real big sympathy for Matt because he's a good guy. He's a passionate guy, gives a lot of energy. Come up against him for a number of clubs: West Ham, Bristol, and obviously Liverpool. So I think it just goes to show the kind of, and we don't know the ins and outs, but it just goes to show that it's a pressurised job, and I think it's a really demanding job. I think to be a head coach, you have a lot of decisions to make. You're always trying to do the best for the team in any situation that you're in. You're having to upset people all of the time. It's part and parcel of the job. And Matt's had a lot of success. I hope he's well. I will at some point reach out to him to check that he's okay, and hopefully he's going to be able to get back in because I think he has a lot to give. He's a very passionate guy, like I said. I think he always creates a real tough challenge against you. I know some of our results against them have been pretty emphatic, apart from maybe earlier in the season where I thought we were excellent at Anfield in the 2-1. But he never makes it easy for you. He makes it really tough. And, the way he is on the sideline is what he epitomises for his team. And they certainly make it tough. So, I like Matt a lot. I hope he's okay. Unfortunately, this is the game we're in and the conditions we're in as a head coach.
Thanks, Gareth. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. We'll go to Adam next.
Thanks, Gareth. Just a short one for me because I think most things have been boxed off by now. But over the international break, Jess scored a first goal for England, second goal for England,
Second,
first outside of a friendly. How pleased were you to see that happen for her? And I know she's pushing to get herself into the squad for the Euros. It would be her first tournament. Do you think she's making a really good statement for herself to be in that team? Yeah.
I think she played a lot of games. A lot of minutes in that period for England. Obviously played both games, started both games. They obviously have some injury issues in there, but I thought she did really well. Thought it was good. I thought she was in the right place to score the goal, and that gave her good confidence. And again, she's a player that we've really had to use a lot this season, probably too much at times due to some of the injury issues we've had, and at times not being able to give her a rest, I think has been probably, she's suffered a little bit with that. But I think, as a top player, as a top person to work with also, I think that people are starting to see the real quality that she has now, and she's going to be a really important player for us for the rest of the season.
Cheers, Gareth.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.